bienvenidos a nuestro primer episodio Salud Cerebral, Adicciones y Soluciones Comunitarias.
¿Cómo escuelas y comunidades o personas jóvenes pueden agarrar ayuda segura como situaciones difíciles y también qué ayuda necesitan?
How can schools, neighborhoods, or young people like us help make sure everyone, even people in really tough situations, get the help they need?
So one thing I think about when it comes to folks getting the help they need with struggles like mental health and addiction, a really important part for me is understanding that these issues are rooted in diseases of the brain that can be diagnosed or identified and treated, sometimes with medical treatments, sometimes with therapy or cultural or spiritual treatments. So when it comes to how schools and neighborhoods can help folks, understanding that there's there's healthy brains and then there's diseases of the brain, and that these diseases of the brain can be treated. People can be cured or managed of some of these conditions that are so poorly misunderstood.
Una cosa muy importante para mí es entender lo que dicen y ayudarles a ser ayudados con medicinas o ayuda del cerebro.
¿Cómo drogas pueden afectar el cerebro más diferente que las personas adultas?
How do drugs and substance affect the developing brain differently than the adult brain?
Well, we're still learning a lot about how the brain develops and how these substances interact with them. But one of the things that we have seen kind of over and over and over again is that if these substances are used when somebody's brain is still developing, and that's really anywhere between the age of 12 and 25, there's still different areas of the brain that are developing. We're seeing that the impact and the likelihood that somebody might develop, say, a problem with addiction or substance use disorder is greater in people who start using these substances earlier on when their brain is still developing. And I think it's really important to also remember that there's the short-term effects that might be happening with that particular drug. For instance, like how it's going to make you feel for that night, but then there are these longer-term effects. And those longer-term effects are kind of what I'm talking about when I'm saying that people are more likely to struggle later on in their life. And it's these long-term effects where your motivation gets switched around. The things that you're interested kind of get switched around. All of these things seem to get impacted more for people who start using these substances younger as opposed to somebody who starts using them, say, when they're 30, even if they both end up using the same substance.
Hay una gran diferencia de cómo afecta el cerebro para los niños chiquitos y a los adultos. Para los adultos no toma tan gran diferencia, pero sí toma una diferencia. Pero para los chiquitos, ellos su cerebro todavía está formándose y aprendiendo más cosas. Pero si toman drogas que no le pueden ayudar, pues su cerebro puede se puede apagar y los de adultos no se pagan tan fácilmente.
¿Dónde pueden encontrar información del cerebro y para ustedes o para otros?
¿Cuál era?
22.
Where can people learn more about brain health or addiction and find resources to help with themselves or others?
Some of the sites that have some fairly good information, even for kids, are things like the NIDA, the National Institute for Drug Abuse. And I think some of the nice things that they have on their particular site is they really talk about different kinds of substances and the effects that the different effects that they might have on the brain. And another thing that they do a really good job of demonstrating is, I just talked about how there's that short-term effect and then there's the long-term effect of the drugs that are out there. On NIDA, they really do a really good job of starting to show like how little it will take for something like fentanyl, which is an extremely dangerous drug that is on the street right now, to have a devastating, fatal short-term effect. In other words, that will make you stop breathing. And so they have a lot of different little images about like how small that would possibly be. And even in your magazine here, I was looking through it and noticed that lethal dosage of fentanyl image here, where it's just a speck on the tip of a pencil. So I think that particular site has some good information about like what different types of substances do, and some of the information about why certain ones are so incredibly dangerous these days. Do you have some other suggestions for sites?
Yeah, I was just thinking, Dr. Clark and I are working with a team that...
Why didn't we...
I know, right? That goes into this topic of introduction to the brain and brain health. It's targeted towards people in middle school, so ages 11 to 13. And we're still working on finishing the curriculum, but the idea is to have teachers in classrooms have this information available to teach their students, not only about what the brain is and how it works, but then how substances interact with and harm the brain, and how those interactions can lead to addiction. That curriculum is called the Brain Waves. And we can provide a link to that in the show comments. But it should be ready by next month, actually. So.
Dijeron que en este libro estaban hablando que lo puedes encontrar en nuestro link. Ese dedo chiquito, cosita, eso puede hacer un gran efecto muy mal, y te puede dañar tu cerebro para que ya no puedas respirar y mueras a una edad bien chiquito. Y dijo que están trabajando en un libro, creo, para los de middle school, y los ayuda a los maestros a entender a los estudiantes, y lo pueden dar en los comentarios debajo del show, y va a estar listo por el próximo mes.
Ahora ya estamos cerrando el programa y adiós.
Now we're gonna close the show and bye.
Gracias.
We're not very good at self-promotion.